Traders, it's your teacher Alan Crockett, and I hope you're watching this video because I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to approach this next assignment of creating your own personal serial special sheet for you guys. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to go to our text tool, and that's this little thing here. And if you click on this little button, it separates out this little part of the thing so you can kind of pull it out and you see all the different tools. You can do that with any of these tools, by the way. So the first thing we're used to is the point type tool, and that just means you click somewhere and it's going to just start adding text where that is. If we were to then say highlight all this, we can type into it anything we want to. If we want to change the font, we can go over here and change it to whatever font we want. In this case, I found this really great comic font here on that one site I shared with you, Blambot, and it's a free font. All these fonts are free, and some free for non-commercial use. But anyways, so if you have this, there's all these different ways that you can manipulate the font over here. You can make it spread apart more by using this tool. You can bring it in closer, etc. You can rotate it like that, which is kind of cool. And you can bring it back to 0. So that's all fun stuff to do. While it's highlighted, you can also change the color. You cannot add a gradient to it. Let's see if we can do this with the gradient option. Yeah, it won't do that, even if you wanted to, which is weird. But if you create outlines of it, then you can add a gradient to it. And that's the weird thing about text. Okay, so let's go back to this one. And once you've created outlines around something, it changes it from being editable text. Like if I were to click on my text tool and try to get in there, I can't get in there anymore. It's done. So you really want to wait till you go to this create outlines till after you've done everything you want to it and it's all ready to go. But here you'll notice I can still edit this stuff. If for some reason you've got a bunch of text, it's nice to write it in a Word document or a Pages document. You can, like I've got this nice collection of ingredients for TNT, and if I wanted to, let's say, use this area text tool, I can create a any kind of shape I want. Let's say I create a polygon in this case. I can point it any way I want, take my selection tool and move it, and then I'm going to get rid of the fill so you can see what I'm doing. And if I were to then, using this area type tool, click on the area that it's delineated. Oh wait, I gotta click on that. It would paste within that polygon. So if I want it centered, I go to this paragraph area here and click the centering. See how, and if right, blah blah blah, and it'll be within this polygon. So if that thing I just copied, I paste it, I've got all my ingredients in there. I can then change the shape of the polygon to fit these different ingredients. And this little plus sign right here means that there's more text than there is space in your shape. So if you want to try to fit everything into your shape, one way is just to make your shape bigger until it all fits, and you'll see once it gets big enough, that little symbol will go away. Or another way is just to shrink down your stuff so it fits. So the weird thing about this shape thing is whenever you click on that shape, the shape disappears, which can be problematic if what you're after is to, you made this great shape and then you click on area fill, the shape will disappear. So there's other ways of kind of playing with that, but suffice to say, if I really wanted to keep my shape, I should do it on a separate layer. And then there is the type on a path tool. Let's say you had the pencil tool and you create some cool, I'm just doing this with my mouse instead of my pen tool, but some weird little spiral tool. Let's get rid of the fill. You can, what's so cool about this, you can actually put your text on a path. And if you see that little weird symbol of the kind of flowing path, you click on the line and there it is. There's all this text. And if I were to then, while it's highlighted, paste all the stuff I put in there, it would all go in there. And see how it's on the paragraph aligned center. If I didn't have it aligned centered, it wouldn't have been way back over here. But because it's aligned centered, it went way back over here. One way to fix that is to click your selection tool and then actually move these little handlebars right here. If you can click. This is actually strangely harder than you think to do, but you have to click on that little handlebar and then you can move it around. See how you can kind of spin this around? And another way is to select this again. And you can, hit select all, but you can also then take off that align center and get it to start right there, which then allows you to really dial this in. Click on that. Oh, undo. I don't know why it's doing this, but we just got to get out of it. Okay. Now it wants to, I need to get the align center thing back on there and then click on it. Yeah, there we go. So when in doubt, undo, undo, and try again. But you want to grab that little handlebar and then pull it around to make that shift happen. But if you're starting to go just into see that little handlebar? Drag it. You're starting to go just into the selection tool. You can do other things with it, like you can stretch out your shape, get some really cool effects that way, and you can compress it in, get some neat effects that way. So this could be cool if you were trying to create, like some kind of orbit of letters and text moving around a central black hole or something like that. So anyways, there's that. Now, the other thing I'm going to show you is, this is just the vertical area, these vertical ones. Like if you want to type with, instead of the text going horizontally in shapes, you can type with it going up and down. And this also changes the text to, instead of being horizontal, it goes up and down on the planes. And so, like for instance with this one, if I were to type here, it's going to go up and down. I can select all and then paste in my text if I want, etc. I can also delete it. So that's other things. Probably the most interesting one to do is the touch type, and you usually start that by just doing a regular you know, let's do the blammo again. Just a regular straight point type, and then you're going to go to, let's make it a little bigger. Select it all, increase the scale. Okay, so we got this, and then you can actually go to this, and this is probably one of the funnest things to do of all the things on the text thing that Illustrator has to offer. So you can turn them, you can make them wider, and you can do this letter by letter. And the thing about this that's so cool is that these are all editable. Like if I want to make this a A, I can turn this into an A by just going back, clicking on it, highlighting it, and saying A, you know, undo. So I can, these are all editable letters still, which is, so you go back to this one, we can mess around with these. And this is just a really neat way to create some really fun, down dirty, like fast kind of logo font kind of stuff. And you know, think about the direction of them and how wide certain letters can be, or narrow, or you know, that each one of these handles on the corner changes something about the letter, like, you know, and you can hand move them around. So anyways, play with that, and you'll see that, you know, it kind of will only go so far into each other. So sometimes you have to do some kind of tricky stuff to get it to fit. Kind of change the shape first and then drag it over, you know, like that. Anyways, once you get that, I'm going to move this out of the way so we don't have it blocking our eyes here. Once we get this, if we wanted to change this text, you could select this over here, and then we're going to go to the eyedropper tool, which is I. If you hit the letter I, it's the eyedropper tool, and you can click on this cool font you made, and that will get turned into that weird, crazy stuff you did. So whatever you did here could be transferred over there. Like for instance, if I then highlighted this whole thing and then changed the fill to say orange, and the stroke, oh, you gotta, so it's got to be highlighted in order to change the stroke. But so I change the stroke to that. When I click over, I have this selected, and I use my eyedropper tool, I can sample that into that, and kabow, it's the same. So, like, and the other thing about this is I can actually change the font too to some other font, like, because it's all editable. So I mean, you know, you got all these choices of different kinds of fonts, you know, like maybe this copper plate I like better, you know, or so anyways, play around with that stuff. That's going to give you some fun things to experiment with. But see how this one's still, it's got that, all that stuff. Let's change this back. Okay, so anyway, select this, and then I'm going to go to the Make with Warp, and I can have all these choices here, different styles. I can do a wave, so it kind of goes up and down, and I can actually alter that wave if I want. I can click OK and play with it. I can do, let's see, a inflate, so it looks like that, or The cool thing about the wave is you can really increase it, and you can make it a vertical wave or a horizontal wave. You can change. You can actually play with both of them. So that's one thing you can do with it. And then afterwards, you can actually click on these things with your direct selection tool and kind of make alterations however you want. You know, one of the things about text I do want to warn you about is it only is readable if you do so much to it. Like there, we've gone too far. So be careful how you play with it if you want it to still be readable. I want to show you a little bit about the star tool. So we'll go back to the star tool. You click on it, it's going to look like a star. If you double click or you just click on that, you can change the amount of points, which is kind of interesting. And you notice it won't change it. It'll just change the future one that you make, which is kind of weird. Never understood that. So if we move that off, let's get rid of this one. That is more of a kind of like explosive symbol. But if you want to get even crazier, you can then make another star. And while you're making that star, you can hold in the command button and you can get these kind of cool radiating lines. See, if you go in, it's little, if it's out. If you hold the option button, it makes it into more of a kind of a smoother thing. The command button makes it more radiating. So if you want a really radiating star, you can kind of get that. You can then line this up with this other one and get some cool effects. You can also rotate it so that, let's get smaller here. You can rotate it so that it lines up. And you can, if you select both of them, you can then center them with each other. So they're all centered. And then rotate this. You can, there you go. So you're using all your cool things, your alignment things and whatnot, and you can get these kind of neat radiating effects. You can then also change the fill color or whatnot to whatever you want. And get some really cool boom, you know, kind of things. You can put a gradient on it if you want. You can do more lines if you want. You know, you could sometimes taking down the stroke a little bit so it's not such a heavy stroke, kind of gets a little better, you know, kind of explosive look to it. You could duplicate this. If you go to Object, Transform, Rotate, you can just take it down, you know, whatever. You could be like, let's do 16 degrees. And then you can make a copy and it'll just keep doing that. And if you go Control Command D, I think, yeah, it'll just keep copying that. So you can get like a crazy. And then, you know, if you like the way all this is working, then you can group it all and be able to move it around. Whoops, I grouped the wrong. Oh, let's undo. Let's not group everything. Let's just group this. Okay. Oof. Who wants to group this stuff? Group. Okay. Let's move that down. And so anyways, you can, if you draw it right, you can just group that. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, and then when you change the scale of it, you know, you can move it and not have everything else move with it. And let's just expand this out. Remember, if you want to expand from a center point, you go Option and Shift, and you pull out. And that gives you that nice center point, blamos, okay. And I can then go Object, Arrange, send it back, and my blamo will be in front of it. So there's a bunch of stuff for you to play with. Okay, so I'm going to show you the last part of this assignment. This is kind of a complicated thing, so follow closely. Basically, when you've finished your artwork, you're going to then have to move it all together, and the easiest way to do that is to group it all. You can use the selection tool to kind of select it all out, and then say group, which helps. And a lot of times, if you're doing something like free transform, and you're done with the artwork and you've saved it as something else in a different life, so I recommend like save the original, so that if you want to go back, you can then go back and you don't have to do what I'm going to do, because it's pretty destructive. But it's a lot easier to manipulate things if you go to Object and you flatten it down. And what this will do is you can check these different boxes, and if you're free transforming text, you need to convert the text to outlines in order to get it to free transform. Otherwise, it won't do it. So I like to check all these boxes and then hit OK. And it'll sometimes, like if there's a gradient, you'll see these little lines and stuff, but when you click off of it, it's pretty invisible. It's just been, this image, I think I image traced it because I was having some issues, and it was, it'll do that. But if you don't have an image trace on a gradient, it won't do that. So anyways, then you're going to take this whole image and you're going to bring it over to your template over here and change the opacity down to, so you can see your template underneath it. And then go over here to the free transform tool. And if you click on that little tab, it'll pop out, which is cool. And you're going to hit free distort, because the free distort allows you to actually just kind of move things around any way you want. And you're just going to try to line these up with the edges of, I'm going to get bigger here so you can see what we're doing better. Line them up with the edges of the template back here. And it's even with the transparency, it can be hard to see what you're doing. So just be a little patient, and once you get it, the idea is to get it close. And once you get it pretty close, then you can kind of keep making little subtle adjustments, and it'll be easier to see without like crazy reds and stuff all over it. So just keep zooming in, doing some subtle adjustments. And then when you got it somewhere close to where you want it, you can click off of it. And that's the point at which you're like, okay, that looks pretty good. You're going to click on it and get your opacity back up to 100% so you can see what things are looking like. And that's pretty good. You can tell there's a little gap there that we can fix. Click on it and then do free transform. Okay, so then you go back to free transform, and we're going to zoom in a little bit so we can see that edge, that top edge. And you're going to just use that free distort, and you're just going to nudge that up to the top there. And you could, use the join tool or whatever, but a lot of times with these guides, you can get pretty close, at least close enough for this assignment. And, honestly, for this assignment, it's not totally critical that everything be completely lined up, but since I'm showing you how to do this, I might as well. And so we got that, and you're going to click off of it, and then you can see what's going on. Now here we're going to put on this side panel, and if we have it all grouped, which it is, because I brought it in from somewhere else all grouped, we're going to go again to Object, Flatten Transparency, and I can't stress enough, once you do this, you've changed the artwork from your editable stuff to something different. So when you flatten it, it gets rid of all these layers, and so it kind of makes it a little simpler. We're going to say OK, but what that does is it takes it changes the text. Because if you were to try to do this, I'm going to undo this and show you. If you try to do this without doing that, what'll happen is you'll, like, let's move it over here first. You go to free transform and everything but the text will transform. So you'll get, like, you know, see how the text isn't transforming there, it stays the same. And so you'll get all this wacky stuff going on. So you don't want to do that. We're going to undo this, click over here, and then we're going to pull it over here. Yeah, because if it's in free transform mode, remember the text is not moving around. So we're going to go to Object, Flatten Transparency, and that just flattens all. You're basically converting all text to outlines. Another way would be to select the text and convert it to outlines. And you can change the resolution of things according to, if you were printing this, you could make it even heavier duty. But for our purposes, that's pretty good. And then we're just going to move it in there just like we did on the other one. And you can guess we're going to go to Free Transform, and we're going to use the Free Distort. And the nice thing about the Free Distort is, and I'm going to change the opacity down so I can see what I'm doing a little better. The perspective one only does perspective. See how the text is now moving with it? So that's really important if you're trying to do, let's zoom in a little bit. And we're just going to pull that down until it says intersect. And we're going to go up to the top and pull this in until it says intersect. And that pops it all in place. Oh, a little higher. And sometimes you can have problems with the smart guides, like forcing you to align things in ways that are bad. But so there you have it. We've got it together. The smart guides, you can adjust it so they don't click in as far away from your goal. You can make it so they don't click at all too. So sometimes that can get in the way of lining things up, smart guides. But in this case, this is basically put together. And go to File, and you're going to export it as, and we've been using the PNG. It's a good quality image. And you're going to say use the artboard because you want just the artboard, and you're going to export it. And it'll show you what it's like. It doesn't have a background on it, which is kind of cool, so it'll just show up. If you'd wanted to put a background, you could have put a background in there. You could stick it in one of your interiors on a table or something. And you can change the resolution if you want a higher resolution image, but I think 72 for our computer screens is good. So just hit export, and make sure you know where you exported it to, and then load it up. Okay, hope this helped you guys out, and I can't wait to see what kind of stuff you did with your cereal boxes. So have fun.